Hello and welcome back to Women Loving 101. I'm Shay.
Yeah.
And that's Hollis.
Yeah.
And we hope that you have all been doing well. Hollis, how have you been?
I've been doing good. I've been really busy. I'm moving out of where I've been living for the past 3 years. So they have a dog, so that's good.
Very exciting. Have you met their dog yet?
Yes, I've met the dog many times. How have you been doing, Shay? You're on winter break? No, summer break. How are you doing, Shay? You're on summer break.
I've been doing well. I started a job about a month ago.
That's right.
Yes, I'm a retail associate
At a clothing
at a store.
Yeah.
And all their clothing is very overpriced, but everything is always on discount, and I get a discount on top of that.
So we thought to start this episode off, we'd ask each other personal advice questions for each other because we love our 9 listeners. Wish y'all would submit a little bit more questions.
We have more than 9.
That's good. Yeah, Spotify said something like 20, so that's enough money to buy a shirt if they all were $1. What? I don't know what I just said. Moving on. Hey, Shay.
Yes?
So I'm going to be moving in with roommates for the first time, and I'm not really sure what's acceptable to ask of them and what's asking too much of them, because I definitely don't want to take advantage of people, but I also want to have like a healthy give and take balance where I'm not just ignoring them or doing everything on my own.
Well, I think that a good rule of thumb in anything is to put into a relationship what you want out of it. So like personally, I've had roommates and I don't really expect that much from them. So like I don't expect them to really help me with things or to always like do things with me, and of course it would be nice, but I don't expect it from them. If they need help, I will offer it to them, but if they don't offer it back, I won't feel like slighted at all. But I think that, say, like you're moving in, and although you've met them before, it's always a good foot to start off on to, like for them to help you. And I don't think that it's too much to ask for you to help because you are moving into their space. And I think that that's an acceptable thing. And just read how much they seem to be putting into it. So say that they go out to lunch sometimes on the weekends when they're all free. If they invite you, then go and, get to know them a bit more. And if they don't, then that's all right too. And
I
in the
would
future,
be heartbroken if all 4 of my roommates went out to lunch and didn't invite me.
it's still I would be too. I'm not saying that it's not tragic, but if they don't, then just, maybe ask of less of them in the future if they're not going to put that effort in.
That's true.
I personally tend to gauge another person's energy before making an effort myself, and sometimes that means making more of an effort to cross that gap, and sometimes it means less. But I think that for now, in the beginning of knowing them, things like asking for help while moving. If you have brought all your stuff there, say you get all of your stuff there and you're at their apartment, all they need to do is help you bring things upstairs, that's perfectly fine. Asking them to help set up your room and make your bed may be a little too far. And if they offer, of course, you can accept. But I think anything that doesn't extend them too far, physically and emotionally, and anything that is very easy for them to do, is a nice way to gauge what they're willing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I went into it trying to be like, yeah, I'm somebody you can rely on for sure, because the first thing I did was they were like, hey, check out this nasty old mattress that's been on the floor forever. And I'm like, I know someone with a truck that I can borrow. Do you want me to get this mattress? And they were like, oh my god, yes, yes, yes. So I definitely went into it trying to build like a relationship of like, yeah, we can ask each other for favors as long as it's fair on both ends.
Yeah, and I think that in my personal experience, and you may have a different one, and our listeners, if you have a different one, feel free to write in with your advice. So this can go both ways.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I found it's either better to be very close with your roommate or hardly close with them at all because that weird in between of we're sort of friends is a very awkward place to be.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely
So,
have been living in more of like I'm currently living with family, but it's distant family, so it's certainly more not professional. What's the word I'm looking for? I guess professional. It's more of like a roommate landlord setting because they also are family, so it's not like they I'm like still going to be your niece at the end of the day even if I don't pick up my dirty socks, but it's like I'm paying rent and this is expected of me. So I'm kind of in a weird in between where it's not like I've been living with my parents all this time, but also it's my first time living with strangers, I guess, besides the time I joined a farm cult when I was 15, but that's another story.
it certainly is another story.
I told you about the farm cult, right?
Yes, you did.
Yeah, that was nuts.
Yes, it was. So, do you have anything else you'd like to ask about with specifics for moving in? It might be good to, personally, I would maybe like bring a housewarming gift. I know it sounds a little weird because it's now your house too, but maybe like if they have a lot of plants, a nice watering can.
Yeah, I did think a watering can, but if you already own a watering can and someone gives you a watering can, it's kind of like, thanks, asshole. Now I have two watering cans. Fuck you.
I was thinking maybe like a decorative one.
Damn, if someone gave me a decorative watering can, I'd be like, yeah, thanks for the trash. Guess this is just gonna sit on the yard and do nothing.
So different people have different things that they like.
Well, now you know, Shay, if you ever get me a housewarming present, don't get me a second watering can or a decorative watering can.
I would have given you like I would have baked you something for a house gift or made you like I don't know, an embroidered towel. Those decorative towels that people hang places that are like what makes a house a home, except I would have written something stupid on it.
Like,
Like where are the lesbians at?
all right, end of my question. Let's move on to yours, Shay.
All right, great, great, great. So I live in a dorm right now, and the only pet that I can have is a fish, but I'm really worried about finding care for it during winter and summer breaks because, like, during the summer, I could probably bring it home, but then there's also the problem of I have a very small car and I can hardly fit my stuff in it as is. How am I gonna fit a whole fish tank? And
Yeah,
during winter break, I could bring it home, but if I can't, that's a whole month that that fish is there. But I want a fish. I love fish. I'm a Pisces, and I don't know how to swim, so they're the closest I'll ever get.
I would say a bathtub is closer than owning a fish, but I'm not here to question, I guess. I'm just here to give advice.
I want to live through them and live their best fishy lives.
I once had a dream as a kid to make like a water park, like a scuba diving water park that's like a giant fish tank.
Like a round, like one of those like stereotypical like globe fish tanks, or like a square one.
Like a square one, because like even though the globe is more interesting, I don't want to promote that image because you should never have a circular tank for fish. It's very bad for them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's not answering your question at all. I would say to hold off just because it is such a pain to move fish, and I think it's more stressful to move a fish than any other animal because they just are being sloshed around in this tiny box they live in. Like a mouse, they can live in a box and then they can also live in the rest of your house. Like they have the ability to travel and explore, and pretty much every single animal has that except for certain like reptiles that, need a really specific environment and can't really waddle around. Fish. So it's really traumatic for them to move. But I'd also say too, if you're worried about space, you can always get like a single beta and a snail, and like a filtered and heated 5-gallon tank can be like a good size for that. But even moving like 10 minutes down the road like I am, it is such a pain to bring my fish. And I have a 10-gallon with a beta. And water is heavy, and he doesn't understand what's happening, and he's really stressed out, and I'm sorry, buddy. Snails might be pretty good, too, and they're a little less stressful to move because they don't need as much water, so you could get, like, a 3-gallon with some, nearite snails, or, like, a 5-gallon with mystery snails. Yeah, and then, you can always, like, move the tank at lower water, whereas a fish would need more water because they need all that oxygen and stuff. So, you can always have a snail tank, except they'll get out. They always get out, especially if Ladies always get out. Alrighty, so now to our actual listener advice. The first question I have is, hey lesbians, how do you balance budgeting with shopping self-care? I recently got a job and I've been struggling not to spend all my money on things like face masks or ice cream or stuff I don't really need.
So I live my life, as I've mentioned, trying not to spend more than $20 on any one item. And so far, it's worked very well.
Except your car
And
sucks, but dum.
and I also will use the $20 limit for weekly like non-necessities. So obviously, I'm not like, "Oh my God, I need like this week's worth of groceries. It's too bad. I only have $20." But
Mm-hmm.
with things like self-care, self-care, while, sometimes we think about it as a non-necessity, and I even do that a lot, it is a necessity. And I think that there's a very big self-care market right now that is promoting products and almost promoting that the more expensive something is, the better it is for you. When in reality, when it comes to self-care, it's not really about buying the most expensive face masks. It's about doing what makes you feel the best afterwards. Whether that's a $2 face mask from CVS or, that $50 face mask that you've wanted forever.
Ooh, that's expensive. See, your budget is $20 for a single item. I think mine's a
No,
dollar.
what?
I
Mine's
think.
like $20 for like a week.
Oh, that makes more sense. I went to a dollar store the other day and I freaked out because I couldn't find a price tag on anything. And they kept telling me everything was a dollar, but I didn't believe them.
I get that. I still want to know. Um, and with self-care, I think there's overlap with self-care and also like hygienic care too,
Mm-hmm.
because self-care can be buying a very nice body wash instead of just using like an ivory soap bar. And
Yeah.
self-care really starts with your basic everyday care. It's things like making sure you're using a body wash and shampoo that's good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found, of course, I live in New England, and I don't know about other places in the world, but here we have a pretty decent, not great, but decent market for local self-care businesses. So I can buy soaps that are made locally, I can buy lotions that are made locally, fairly simply. And I found that they're not too terribly more expensive, and oftentimes they're cheaper. I use castile soap instead of a body wash, and you can find it in a bar or in liquid, and it makes my skin feel 10 times better than a lot of the other soaps that I've used, and it's $5 for like 18 ounces. And it
Nice.
lasts me like almost a full semester.
Yeah. And I also think it comes to like you can cut the budget on some things but not others. Like don't skimp and buy really really cheap toilet paper. You'll regret that, but you can find something else cheaper like I don't care about name brand peanut butter. I don't care about name brand for me, I don't really care about soap. I just use like Dove soap. But like I'd rather have a skin lotion that smells really nice and is really good for you. So I get a cheaper body wash, but then I get a better skin lotion. You want to find places that you can skimp on money but not on the experience. So, if you're going to suffer by getting a dollar cheaper for this type of pesto, then just get the one that's a dollar more expensive. Like you might think you're saving, but you also want to save your soul. That didn't make sense. I'm getting a little all over the place.
No, it's all right. I get it. I get it. But maybe it's just because, I'm a little all over the place too. But you need to save your soul. I
Yeah.
agree. I also think that self-care, because it is somewhat of a market of being like, wow, like here's this like $20 rose water face spray. We forget
Ugh.
that self-care can be free, that
Yeah.
self-care can be doing things for yourself like writing, like going outside and enjoying nature. And we think that self-care is just about the products that you consume.
Yeah. And I'd say it's good to budget that instead of being like, "Oh, I can't spend money on the stuff I want to spend money on, I'm just going to buy practical things. And that's how you slip through the cracks and start impulse buying really expensive things. You're like, oh, I've been so good. So it's good to find a balance. Like as you said, Shay, it's really good to have like maybe, you know, you don't want it to be ever more than like 10% of your paycheck, but maybe set aside like, you know, if you're made $100 and set aside $10 and be like, yep, this $10 I can spend on whatever I want to spend it on. And then that way if there's something you like, then you know you'll be able to get it and you don't feel that pressure to impulse buy because you know that you'll get it eventually.
And I think that self-care we often feel very guilty about, especially when we spend money on it. And something that I have done to make myself feel a bit less guilty is to really understand that self-care is a necessity, like we've both said before, and to budget it into my necessities. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't just buy body wash to buy body wash, but I buy the one that feels like, ooh, it's for self-care.
Yeah.
And self-care to me means a different thing than it does to Hollis, and it'll mean a different thing than it does to all of you. But I think that if you view self-care in all things that you do, you can budget better because you aren't saying, oh, I need to buy like, or I want to buy $10 worth of face masks today, but you're going to the store and you're saying, I'm getting this to help my skin.
Yeah. And as Shay said about like picking out the right body wash, as I said, if it's $2 more for the one you want, that's not worth saving. Like you're not gonna want those $2 so bad that you have to sacrifice, you know, your quality of life. Find the $2 to cut somewhere else, you know?
Mm-hmm.
This one comes from an anonymous user on Tumblr.
I was listening to your last episode, and when you spoke about having your significant other as your only friend, I made the mistake of doing that. We broke up recently, and now I think I want to open up and find friends, so my question is, where would you make Willowa friends, preferably IRL, or where did you meet your closest Willowa friends? Would you like to start?
Yeah, to be honest, I moved out. So I grew up in a small town. I was born and then I was taken home from the hospital to a house. And then I lived in that house until I turned 17. And then a month after graduating high school, I moved 3,000 miles. And I've really struggled making friends because I had the same friend group for my whole life. And I still talk to them, but it's not the intense closeness it used to be because we were sharing a similar experience and we were sharing proximity. But it's still nice when I go back to see them. So even though they're long distance friends, they're not like close long distance friends I'm on the phone with every night. I don't know. And I think I'm kind of a picky person. I have trouble making new friends. Honestly, I'm happier having my high standards and having acquaintances in real life. I haven't really formed a close friendship with anyone yet, even though I've been here 3 years. Oops. So I've been really happy with my online friends, and it's a lot easier to make friends online because you can go on Tumblr and hit tagged lesbian Discord and then join all the lesbian Discords and then filter out people really easily. And like when you have bios and descriptions and stuff and similar interests, it's really easy to meet people. So I just did a lot of that, and my family's being really loud. So I've just been making a lot of online friends and kind of doing phone calls or like chat room Discord calls, Skype calls. That's what they're called. Skype call type shit with them. And that's kind of filled the gap for me. I definitely want to make more real friends and I've been trying to. I don't know. It's hard to make friends, especially when you want to be in a similar boat. That was bad advice. I don't have advice. I guess my advice is they'll come to you in time and online friendships work well to fill the gap. Now, advice from somebody that has actual friends, Shay.
I don't think that there's any shame in having close online friends. And I'll be honest, I also have very high standards, and I'm also very quick to think, I don't like that, and then not talk to people as much. I think that as far as closest Willowa friends, IRL, I don't have any at the moment because I go to college somewhere very far, not very far away. It's about a 3 hour drive away from where I grew up and where I went to high school. And I still occasionally talk to some of the people who I went to high school with, but I wouldn't say I keep in close touch with any of them, especially with any of them who are Willowa. But as far as my closest Willowa IRL friend goes, now we're long distance friends because they've moved states permanently. But we stay in touch mostly by talking about memes, and every once in a while we call each other for a little bit. As far as finding Willowa friends at college, I really only have like one or two just because I've been at college for about a year now and I live on campus, but I'm a fairly introverted person, so I don't really go out of my way to make new friends in spaces and to talk to new people. One of
I do,
my
but I'm really picky. So that's my problem.
I don't, and I'm also picky, so my pool of people is very small. I firmly believe in the natural gravitation of LGBT people towards each other. I firmly believe in that. I have
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so I think that if you join clubs and activities in your school, if you live on campus and you're in college, or if you're in high school, I've never commuted to a college, so I don't really know how the environment is there. But I think that if you join clubs and activities there, you will naturally gravitate towards those people. Tabletop clubs tend to have a lot of LGBTs, theater clubs, if that's your thing. If theater's not your
Oh,
thing,
that's true.
I hate acting. I really like tech work. I did tech in high school. I help with tech a bit in college. I haven't quite gone into it yet because again, I'm too shy to ask if for them to like give me a role. I just kind of show up to the meetings. But yeah, I think whatever club you're in, if it interests you, then you will slowly become friends with them or very quickly. It depends how much you click and how extroverted or introverted you are. And even if there's no Willowa there, they might know people, and then you just meet more and more people through there. A lot of schools do have a
That's a really
GSA.
good point. That's like amazing point, Shay. Like, if you go into it with this really narrow circle of like, I need to make a willow a friend, like you might meet a nice straight girl and she might introduce you to all her lesbian friends. Like if you open up that circle, the gays will pour in eventually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I was saying, a lot of schools have GSAs. I have had
Bleh.
what?
Bleh.
Oh, I thought that you were trying to say it like phonetically, and I was like, Gasa?
No, I'm saying bleh.
Yeah, I have had no luck. Most people who I know have had no luck. So, if your school doesn't have one and you want it to have one with the right kind of people, start it yourself. If it does have one and you don't like the kind of people, one of my friends started a new one.
Oh, I also want to clarify the reason we're going bleh to GSAs is because in theory they're good, but I want to actually do community work or something like that. Like I don't want to just sit around and talk to people in like a really big rigid environment of like a club. And it's always just been like straight people and gay guys who aren't very politically aware and hardly any women or Willowa in general. So
I
that's why GSAs are bleh for me. Like we never actually do anything, and then like the gay guys talk about like RuPaul, and I'm like, oh, this certainly isn't for everyone. This is
Yeah,
not a very inclusive environment.
while I had a slightly different experience in mine, they just weren't my type of people, and just because you're both, uh, a large amount of the people in them were Willowa, but just because you're both Willowa doesn't mean you necessarily get along, which is also, I think, a very important thing is that just because you're both Willowa doesn't mean you'll click and doesn't mean you have to be friends. So don't force it, you
Yeah.
know? I know that, like, the first Willowa you meet, say you're in a new place, or say you just haven't met a lot before, you want to be like, oh my god, let's be best friends. We have this in common. But don't force it if you don't get along, because that'll cause both of you more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah, for sure. The first person I met when I moved here was also a lesbian, and I was like, we're best friends now. And she's like, yes, we're best friends. And she texted me every day, and she called me her bestie, and we'd only known each other for 6 days, and she told me all her secrets, and she was crazy, and it took me months to get away from her.
Yeah,
So don't
like,
trust people too fast, just because I know we want to believe all LGBT people, especially Willowa. We all want to believe they're magic, beautiful people, but some of them kind of suck. So look before you leap.
yeah, and I'd say also set boundaries with what you tell people and what you want other people to tell you.
Or a counterpoint. Tell a girl on your first date the story of how you were conceived and about the medication you're on. We're just different people. That's what I was getting at.
I meant more like it's very easy to monitor what you tell other people and to put up those boundaries or lack thereof. If you really don't want to have boundaries, then live your freest life, not having boundaries, not having shame. That's what Hollis does, and it seems to work for you.
Been with her 3 years, so clearly she liked my first date talk.
Nice. But I think that it's fairly easy to put up boundaries for yourself and what you'll share, but sometimes we forget to put up boundaries with what we're willing to accept from other people. And
That's a good point.
yeah, it's okay to not just be a sounding board for everyone, and that if someone like that girl that you had met wanted to tell you their entire life story and deepest, darkest secrets, it's okay to have a boundary, and I think it's necessary to have a boundary and say, hold on, wait, that's too much right now. And if they don't respect
Yeah.
that, then they don't respect that, and you can move on, and there will be more people, and it might be upsetting, but you gotta take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So I feel like, I guess, to too long didn't read, there has to be a more eloquent way of saying that. To wrap up all the previous points made, we are, I guess we're all in the same boat where we're struggling to make in real life friends, but I think making close internet friendships, it's easier to find people you connect to because it kind of it expedites the process. And in the meantime, meet their people, taste test them. Don't jump in. Wait around in the water. And if you start to feel a connection, go for it. But just bounce around. And honestly, oh God, I'm going to go on another tangent, but going places alone is just awesome sometimes. Like, don't always feel stressed to bring some acquaintance you don't know. Like when I first moved here, I was like, I'm going to go to this convention. And this girl I didn't really like from English class who was once sat down and told me word for word a fanfic she had wrote 5 years ago about Fruits Basket. And I was like, okay. I was just like, hi. And she's like, yeah, I wrote this Fruits Basket fanfic 5 years ago. I'm going to sit here for 2 hours and tell you the entire thing word for word. She's like, let's go to this convention together. And I was tempted because I didn't want to go alone. And then I was like, nah. And then I went alone. And I had an amazing time. And I met a lot of new people. And I wouldn't have had that experience if I had gone with somebody else and just clung to them for safety.
Yeah, and when you go out and do things alone, if you so choose to, don't be afraid just to talk to strangers. If you are sitting across from someone eating lunch and you like their top, say, hey, I like your top, and don't shy away from having a fuller conversation.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. This next question is a Dungeons and Dragons question. Or a role-playing tabletop gaming question in general, I guess. Boy, this one's for nerds.
Because if you play D&D, you're a nerd. We only play
Yeah.
Pathfinder in this house.
Oh my god. I like 5e.
I have no preference.
Me neither. I like to play Pathfinder, but I like to DM 5e because I don't need to think about grappling. Anyways, before I reveal how nerdy we are, we should probably read this question and then we can reveal it in our answer, I guess. People have been dropping out of my D&D campaign, and it puts me as the DM, for listeners at home, Dungeon Master, in such a tough spot. Should I be nice and just play whenever our schedules line up, even if that's only once in a blue moon? Or should I just tell them all tough shit?
Okay, my gut reaction is to play nice. However, I have been in the same spot as you for a while. And in fact, what's more infuriating is that, a similar spot. No one's dropped out of my campaign, but I have been in kind of a scheduled deadlock for when we can play. And what's even more frustrating is there have been days when we all could play, but no one filled out their schedules, so I didn't know and I couldn't schedule. And then after the fact, they'd be like, wait, why didn't we play this day? We were all free. And it's like, you didn't tell me that. So I've been in a similar situation. And in talking to other DMs, the advice that they all have for a smoothly running campaign is you set a day, you say make it or don't, and then you just hope for the best. And people will either work out their schedule so they can make it or drop out if they can't.
Essentially, yeah. It's hard when you're mid-campaign, but if you're starting a new campaign, definitely say, like, we play every Sunday at 5. Can you make it? And either they say yes, or I will get it off work, or I can do every other Sunday. And you say, okay. And then you do that, and you try and find a schedule that works for everyone. Like, let's say one person can't do Sunday, but everyone else can do Monday, then do Monday. But don't say, like, oh, we'll just do, like, however schedules look and we'll line it up, because that seems nice, but you're just giving everyone, especially yourself, a headache in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, mid-campaign, if it's not working, it's not working. And if you want to be playing on a consistent basis, you really got to lay down the law. And the thing is it sucks, but there's probably somebody else that can meet that time slot, and then you could all be playing instead of dragging your heels for one person. So I would tell them, like, meet this commitment. We'll try, be nice to an extent, try and help them out. Try and, like, say, oh, maybe we can start 30 minutes later because you can get home from work that time. But if they just can't meet it, even if it's not their fault, they're not playing anyway. So why keep them in the campaign and stop them from letting everyone else play?
Yeah, like, if, say you have, I think the standard party size that I've seen is 5 to 6. No, 4 to
What?
6.
Yeah,
Stand.
that's right.
It's like 4 to 6 people, and it's really hard to play with 3, but if you have 6 people, one person can't make it, 5's a perfectly sound party size. So, I've had
Four
this
is
problem.
fine.
Yeah, like 4 or 5 is
I
still
like small
sound.
parties.
3's a bit too small, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. So, like, if you have one person who consistently can't make all the other times that everyone else can make, or a couple people who can't, then it's
Bye.
either, yeah, like, say you have 5 people and each game one of them can't make it, but it's a different person each time. Like, it sucks that they can't make it, but it's either you all play without them or nobody plays. So either way, someone
Yeah.
isn't playing. Either way, they're not playing. It just depends on if everyone else is. And you do want to be nice, I think that we all want to be nice and like accommodating, but if it's consistent and you haven't played for like a long time, then there gets a point where you have to say, well, you can't make it. Let me think about how I want to phrase this so it makes sense. It gets a point,
Bye.
yeah, bye. It gets a point where you have to say, like, you not being able to play means that no one else can play. So either way, you're not playing. It just depends on if everyone else is playing or not. And I think that that's a
Yeah.
better way to look at it. Will they miss out on story? Yeah. It's not their fault that they have a full schedule and you still have a whole another party of people to accommodate.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can't put the campaign on hold.
And also, in general, there's a difference between, I mean, you can be kind and assertive at the same time. Saying no or saying you have to do this is not unkind. It's just being assertive. You can
Mm-hmm.
do it kindly. You can say, I'm sorry, I love you. You have the funniest character, but you just can't make these time slots, so it's just not going to work. Maybe if something works out in the future, but since, all 8 of my other players can do this, I can't reschedule all of them for you. I'm sorry, I love you. Goodbye, John. Then you got to do that. Also, this won't work for every campaign, but if it can, then do it. But if you can swap characters in and out or have a more loose story, like, I don't know, it's a clubhouse and sometimes only certain people show up, like that kind of thing. It's harder to do longer form stories, but if that's all that works for your group, like it's consistently like a couple people can't, then set up a campaign where it's okay to rotate characters and it's okay not to be there every day and you play smaller short form stories. And it might suck if you want to do something longer, but if you can't do the group and they can't make the time, then you're not doing something longer anyway. All right, we crushed that one.
Yeah. I'm high-fiving you right now.
I just punched my mic.
Let me just... There we go. We high-fived. It was solid.
Okay, bye.
Wait.
We have a new sign off to try because we're trying new things because this is still in beta. Have you heard our audio? Have you heard our audio quality? This is still a beta podcast.
Absolutely. I don't have any money. I started a new job and then I spent half my first paycheck on a shirt. That's a lie. It was like a third and I only worked 2 shifts, so it was not a lot of money.
Okay. So we thought for this sign off, we try something new and share a fun scientific animal fact that everyone can learn from. I had a tabby cat that was 22 pounds and he wasn't that fat, just very strong.
Did you know that if you get a cat to catch mice, it won't catch mice because they're all divas?
All right, well that concludes this time for Woman Lovin' 101. You can find us at womanlovin101.tumblr.com or email us at womanlovin101@gmail.com. Check out our About page on Tumblr to find out more about us or how to get a question on the show. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, John. I love you.
Who's John? Oh, your campaign. You made a campaign character.